Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Macro Mastery course. Super excited to have you all here. What we're going to be going over today primarily is what is macros, why you should track your macros, best practices, and bonus tips, or maybe things to avoid. So without a further ado, I will hop in. I'm going to share my screen. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hop them into the chat or just raise your hand and I will answer your questions. Okay, so let me know when you guys can see my screen. Please just like pop a one in the chat if you can see the presentation. Right, perfect. Okay, great, thank you. All right, so health and you, macro mastery, how to track, why you should track, and best practices when tracking macros. Okay, so first things first, what are macros? So you might have heard this term before. Macros is a short term, it's abbreviation for macronutrients. So your macronutrients are all different types of calories. Okay, so your macro subsections are there's carbohydrates, carbs, proteins, and fats. Okay, so each macro has different roles and responsibilities. Eating them in different ratios can give you different outcomes. So to do a quick summary, your carbs are going to be your high intensity, high effort type of carbohydrates. They're also just good for overall general energy, just feeling good. Carbohydrates definitely have a role. You're going to get a lot of your vitamins and nutrients and potassium from carbohydrates. Also, your fiber will come from carbohydrates. So if you're trying to like limit your carbohydrates, you're going to probably struggle with fiber, which can lead to like constipation, things like that. So carbs super important. Proteins are think of them as like your repair macro, recovery, repair, muscle growth, not just for building muscles, but also hair, skin, nails. Proteins heal and bring things together. Okay. Fats are more for general health. So hormone function, especially as women, this group is primarily women, about 99% women. I have a couple of husbands on here, but this presentation is going to be targeted for women. So fats play a huge role in your guys' hormones, brain function, overall health. So do not negate fats. I would say out of all the macronutrients, fats are probably the ones that people undereat the most without really knowing it. They don't add in the typical macro sources such as like butters, oils, avocados, things of that nature. Okay. So macros are a subsection of calories. Beyond your macros and calories, there's a further subsection called your micronutrients or your micros. All right. So your micros are your vitamins and minerals. These are just as important, so don't neglect them. So if you guys would eventually like me to create a micro mastery course, just pop a two in the chat and I will create that presentation for you guys. And we'll do that in a few months, probably after the other presentations that we have lined up. All right, cool. And I love that we're getting a lot of interest from that because I think most people look at the macronutrients, and macronutrients is like the easier way to go about doing things, I would say. And it takes more effort to focus on your micronutrients. But if you're looking to be as healthy and as optimal as possible, having your micros hit is super important. Okay, so how many calories does each macro have? All right, carbohydrates has 4 calories per gram. Proteins also have 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9 calories per gram. Okay, so this means that you just have to be extra careful with your fats. It's not to say not to take them in, it just means to be careful with them. Try not to overeat on them because it's very easy to go over your calories if you're, for instance, using too much olive oil or too much butter, things like that. You want those things in your diet, they're important. You just want to make sure you have the right amount. I just want to be super clear on that. This does not mean do not have fats in your program. Okay, so this is an example. So all of you, when you have received a meal plan from us, you will see at the top, it'll have your calories written as well as your macros. An alternative might be just the protein and the calories, but if you're a newer client for us, we always put the macros at the top. So for instance, if you had 150 grams of protein and then 175 grams of carbs and 65 grams of fat, you would have 1,885 calories because we took 150 by 4, we took 175 by 4, and then 65 times 9. You add all those together, you get 1,885. Okay, so why is tracking macros even beneficial? Why do we even do this in the first place? So first off, it gives you an idea of how much you're eating. if you are not tracking or if you don't know and you're not measuring it, you have no idea. Oftentimes, when I have consultations with women, they will say, there's no way I'm eating enough, or I feel like I'm definitely under eating. That's why I'm not losing weight. Most people, that is not actually true. You might think you're under eating, but it's actually very easy to rack up calories, and there might be little things here and there that are causing your calories to be inflated. So that's number one. Number two is it will let us know if we're eating in a calorie deficit, which means we're losing weight, if we are in a calorie surplus, which means you're gaining weight, or if we're in a calorie maintenance, which means our weight is staying the same. All right. Number three, why we track macros is it allows us for flexibility when wanting to adjust our meal plan. So the best way to do things in terms of like seeing the best, fastest results is probably just sticking to a meal plan forever. However, that's probably not very realistic and it's not very sustainable. So you want to be able to know how to create your own meal plans and make changes on the fly. Say one day you run out of chicken. Okay, well, maybe you have some shrimp in the freezer. You can make that quick adjustment. So we're going to teach you how to do that. Next up is gives you a deeper understanding on nutrition. If you track for a good couple months, you're going to have a much deeper understanding of like how much different calories different foods are. You'll realize, oh, I probably have actually been overeating, not undereating, because it's very easy to rack up calories. It'll give you an understanding of like what foods are proteins, what foods are carbs, what foods are fats, and maybe hidden calories in foods that you would not have otherwise thought. Next up is it teaches you what macros your body actually prefers. So I'm somebody who likes to have particularly a high protein, moderate carb, high fat diet. I found that that works best for me and my body type. This is something that is way more individualized and it takes years of really fine tuning and experimenting. When we give you guys your meal plans, we're taking a rough guess on what works for most people. But through your feedback forms, through your check-ins, we can then decide, okay, is this actually working for us? And then at some point, myself, Kylie, Jen, or one of the other coaches will adjust your macros because of maybe your body genuinely needs a lower carb diet, or maybe you need a low fat diet. And that is more so how your body responds, but also preference as well. For instance, Jen has been preferred to have a very high fat diet for many years. Whereas me, I like to have like moderate to low fat. But recently I've been experimenting with higher fats and I'm finding it's working better for me. So yeah, this takes honestly a lot of experimentation. So be patient with that. Next up, it gives you a record of tracked food. So I think this is one of the biggest benefits because you can use this data to reflect on future decisions. So for instance, if you go through this program and you're like, oh man, like I lost 20 pounds in 12 weeks and you didn't track it and you're kind of just guessing what you ate, it's not going to be as effective as if you have those numbers and those things to reflect back on. This really works well in like a very historical sense. So for instance, when I was in 2020, it was probably when I felt my absolute best, my absolute healthiest. I was in the best shape possible. COVID was happening. Everything was shut down. I had all the time in the world to focus on just working out and eating and just being perfect with everything. Most of the takeout places were closed, so it was very easy to stay away from that. So I'm able to go back into my fitness pal that I used in 2020 and see the exact diet that I ate back then. And if I want to copy that, I could. And to a certain extent, I have done that. So that's a really big reason to reflect on it. Also, if you're trying to track, like say you went out, you had some burgers and you felt kind of crappy, you can look back on your log from the previous day and be like, oh, like that's probably what caused me to feel this way. And then you can make future decisions on that next time. Allows you to also maximize your gym performance and health when done properly. So this is where different things like carb nutrient timing can come in. So for instance, if you are somebody who's been eating low carbs and you reflect and you see your carbs have been low, and you're always like, oh, Sean, Kylie, Jen, my workouts are so crappy. Like I do my first two exercises and then I'm absolutely exhausted. We can reflect back on that and say, okay, well, maybe your carbs are not high enough. Also, if you report headaches, if you report waking up in the middle of the night to go pee, we can look at your tracking and say, oh, this is why. It's because your electrolytes are imbalanced. And we're going to go over electrolyte imbalance later on in the presentation. So it just allows you to maximize your gym performance and health when done properly. And the key here is when done properly, because there is this style of eating called if it fits your macros, where people will literally eat, Pop-Tarts and pizza and all these more type unhealthy foods to fit inside their macros so they can kind of diet almost on easy mode. But the thing is, when you do that, although it will be effective, you will have lots of like health and performance setbacks. Okay, I'm going to take a little pause here and see what questions the group has. So feel free, anybody, to unmute, ask some questions. I'm sure there's been something to have come up here. Don't be shy. Feel free to engage. You can either pop your question in the chat or just feel free to unmute or raise your hand or whatever. But I'm sure there's somebody who has a question here. Nobody? This all makes perfect sense, and you guys are all crushing. Okay. How do you, so, sorry, I'm just reading the question from the chat. Nurjan asked, how do you know what type of body, what type of macro your personal body prefers? So a lot of this is through trial and error. And the things that I would say, report to your coach of how you're physically feeling. So, and what I mean by that is like, how is your energy? How is your sleep? Do you have any unsavory symptoms such as like headaches, constipation, diarrhea, poor gut health in general, bloating, cramping? Do you feel low energy? Do you have good performance in your workouts? These are all things that there could be a wide variety of different things that could be causing it, but most times it's going to be your diet. So those would be the first things. And then also primarily is like your results. Like, are you getting physical results from the style of diet that you're doing? If you're sticking to your diet for a period of, let's just say, 4 to 6 weeks consistently, you should see a substantial change in how you look and how you feel. So if you're not, then that could be a sign that the plan that you have is not working for you. And then you can try experimenting with different macronutrient ratios. For instance, I have a client who she had some more so like unique gut health issues where like I believe she had a gastric bypass, meaning her stomach was a lot smaller. So she wasn't able to consume 150 grams of protein throughout the day. She had to have much smaller meals. She had to have, say 60 or 70 grams of protein, which is not ideal for overall fitness and health physique goals. However, that's what we had to operate with, and it was still very effective for her because we had to, come to that conclusion eventually. So that's just one example. But if you're communicating with your coach, and this is where like a lot of the coaching benefit can come in, is just like really laying out your symptoms and then let us be like the problem solver, so to speak. But a lot of it just truly comes down to trial and error. So thank you for your question. All right, who else has a question? Okay, no more questions. Okay, we will move on. All right. Can we see before I move on? Someone give me a yes or a two or something in the chat. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Maria. Okay. So here's the problem. It is very easy to mess up on your tracking, and inaccurate tracking is pretty much pointless. If you were trying to track 2,000 calories, for instance, and you're doing it incorrectly, you could be getting that as high as 3,000 calories. And then you think I'm eating 2,000 calories, and then you're eating 3,000, it's going to throw you off. So it's just very important that you're tracking accurately. So the goal here today is the biggest one is just to like teach you how to do that properly. You will usually underestimate your calories and macros, making you consume more. Most people underestimate, they don't overestimate. One study showed the average person underreports their calories by up to 60%. So what they did is they took a big group of people, they taught them how to track. They were already working out. They already had reported that they knew how to do this. So it wasn't like just completely random to them or foreign to them. It was something that they actually thought they knew how to do. And they underreported their calories by up to 60%. So that's just like one major key area of like how you can really make big mistakes that lead to your calories being off. So let's just say, for instance, your meal plan says to eat 1,800 calories. If you over-reported or you overate by 60%, that'd actually be 2,800 calories. So it's 1,000 calories more. That's actually the difference to you, the difference between losing weight and gaining weight. So it's super important they do that. And it's actually like people might think on this call, like, wow, who's gonna eat 1,000 extra calories and not know it? It's very easy to do it. It's like an extra piece of toast, an extra couple pieces of peanut butter, maybe use a full avocado instead of a half. And then, you eyeball your rice and you're having 200 grams of rice instead of 100. It's very easy to do. You make those four mistakes across a week and you've easily added 1,000 calories to your day. Another study showed, a completely separate study, that training individuals reported their calories by up to 2,000 per day. So 2,000 they were off by. So they're supposed to be eating, say, 1,500. they were eating 3,500 calories. So pretty crazy. So this is the difference between losing weight and gaining weight. So this is where precision is key. Okay, so first we must understand that if it's not tracked in weight, it cannot be accurate. Your eye scale is not as accurate as you think. So if you're eyeballing stuff, you're really going to have a tough time. Now, there'll be times, rare situations where you don't have access to your scale. Your scale is broken. You're traveling. Then obviously you're not going to be able to weigh stuff. You're going to have to do your best. And hopefully over the next time, like few months of you guys being here with us, you can get an idea and you can improve the accuracy of your, eyeballing skills or eye scale, but it's never going to be 100% accurate. So when you have access to your scale, you should always be weighing your stuff, especially in a meal prep fashion. It's really easy to do, and it will ensure that you're accurate because you want to be making decisions off of accurate data. If you're making decisions off of inaccurate data, then you're not likely to, have a certain outcome. Malia in the chat asks, how important is timing of meals and snacks throughout the day? Sorry, I can't see the other. Okay. What is the amount of time we should have between last meal and breakfast and between each meal? So, that's a great question. In terms of timing of meals, I personally like to space my meals out every like 3 to 4 hours or so. Sorry, 1 second. Please move this window away from me. Try to see what's going on. Sorry, can you guys see? I've lost the screen here. Sorry, guys, I lost the screen. Okay. So how important is the meals and time? Okay, the overarching answer is that the the total calories and total macros matters most. So the reason why I say this is I don't want you stressing out and like trying to revolve your whole day around the certain exact timing of meals. So for instance, if you're in a situation where you have to eat your meals an hour apart at one point in your day and then 5 or 6 hours apart throughout the day at another period of your day due to like work or restrictions with your kids or sports or whatever, like don't overthink it. Don't stress about that. It's really not going to make the biggest difference. If your calories and your macros are accounted for at the end of the day, you're going to get a good result. Now, that being said, you want to space your meals out through about 4 different intervals of eating throughout the day, usually separated by at least an hour, so that you can get multiple dosages of protein per day. Okay, so what I mean by this is you want to have 30 to 60 grams of protein 4 times a day because that's what it does, what's called maximizes muscle protein synthesis. So what you want to be able to do is maximize your muscle protein synthesis throughout the day so that you can build muscle optimally versus if you had your entire 150 grams of protein in one sitting, you'd only be getting one opportunity to grow muscle throughout the day versus 4, which is why we recommend 4. You can technically do up to 6 meals a day, which is fine. It's just we find that to be quite time consuming and a little bit stressful for people. So 4 kind of works best with regards to consistency. So the next part of your question was what Sorry, I'll get blocked out here. What is the amount of time we should have between last meal and breakfast? I don't know. I think you mean the next day. Are you able to unmute Malia and like clarify your question, please? Is she here? Malia, you with us?
I'm here. Sorry, I'm on my treadmill while I listen because I gotta head out after this. So my question was, between like dinner and breakfast the next day, right? Because
hmm
I know I've asked you multiple different times about how late, um, to eat versus to the next meal.
hmm
So you before minimum 2 hours before bedtime, and then but I just some of us get up at 5 in the morning, some of us get up at 7. So do you feel like there should be like a good 10-12 hour window between
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, no, that
last
actually
meal of the
doesn't
day
matter.
breakfast?
No, that's totally fine. That actually doesn't matter. Um, what's more important is that like your digestion is being respected. So what I mean by that is like do you feel like you're able to consume food? You don't want to be like constantly pushing yourself, but like if you slept 8 hours, that's more than enough time. That's totally fine.
Okay.
Great question though. Thank you for clarifying. Sorry, I didn't initially understand.
Sean, it's Justina.
Yeah.
Just on that same note, is there something about, not eating too late? I know common common themes out there in the world are like, don't eat after 8 or whatever. Is that um something that we should be thinking about?
I personally don't think that that matters too much, like in terms of like no carbs after 7 or no carbs after 8. I don't think that that's the way that I would look at it. In fact, there's a lot of data to show that you should have carbs at nighttime because they will make you sleepy and sleep better. What rule I would put into play, so to speak, is make sure you're fully digested. For instance, if you go to bed at 10 and you had your final meal at 9:30, you're going to be full. So like when you lay down, you're not going to feel very good, and your body while you're trying to sleep is going to be focusing on digesting, and it's not going to be able to do either of those very effectively. So you're going to have poor digestion and poor sleep. So just make sure, like I personally like to have my last meal. I find what works for me is like at least 2 hours before I actually go to sleep. My meals are quite large too, so if like I'm eating a lot and I go lay down, I feel very full and I just can't sleep properly. So like it doesn't necessarily have to do from like a fat loss, weight loss perspective. It's more from a digestion perspective. So just make sure that like you don't feel full going to bed is a way that I would put it.
Sounds good. Yeah, makes sense.
Is that clear?
Yeah,
Okay, sweet.
perfect.
Awesome. Okay, sweet. Maria in the chat asks, sometimes I don't eat the full meal in one sitting. It may take me an hour and a half to finish the first meal I eat while I work. Is that okay? That's totally fine. If you want to slowly eat your meals and like break them up throughout the day, that's fine. The overarching rule I would say is like as long as your calories and your macros are met at the end of the day, however you're getting that in is really fine. As long as like the secondary caveat to that is that, excuse me, your digestion is respected, you feel physically good. Those are ultimately like what's most important. So great question there.
I've got a question, Sean. Most of us have our meal plan from you. So it'll have its carbs, its protein, and its fats. And sometimes there's like the macro cheat sheet with kind of like extra condiments or salt and pepper seasonings. And how do we use those or determine what we can use? Because I tend to kind of stick to what you've sent, but then I see something that looks like I can add more flavor and looks exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to seasoning your foods, I feel like in a sense, almost anything goes. Like any spices is fine. So salt, pepper,
Mhm.
paprika, lemon pepper, like whatever, those are fine. The caveat there is be aware of spices and what are in the spices. So if you buy paprika, you might think this is just paprika. This is fine. If you look at the jar and you flip it around, it might say paprika, citric acid, this preservative, that preservative, this preservative, that preservative, this seed oil. That is the stuff that you want to watch out for. And it won't be written on the front, it's on the back in very small
Okay.
letters. So
Great
just like
info.
pay attention to
Yeah.
that. Typically, I know this is, not the best. It's inconvenient, but the good stuff is going to cost more. Like the cheapest one on the shelf will have all the crap in it. The more organic, just like single ingredient stuff is going to be more expensive. So just keep
Mhm.
that in mind. But in my opinion, it's worth it because you'll feel physically better. So I like to rotate through my seasonings every few weeks just for like variety's sake. Be aware of sauces as well, like especially like low calorie or 0 calorie sauces. Those things are going to be loaded with preservatives, seed oils, things that are more synthetic and man-made, and they don't, while they're low calorie or 0 calorie, which we might think that's good, that often comes at a cost. And it's going to be those are the things that really disrupt your metabolism, your gut health, how you physically feel. So I'm like super cautious aware of that. I want you guys to be like ingredient investigators. When you go to the grocery store, you want to find the brands that you trust. So the first time you do this, this might take you an hour. And if you guys are unsure, feel free to send a picture to us and we can like let you know what's good about it, what's bad about it, what you should avoid. And then once you find your trusted brands or your trusted products, then it's easier. Then you just pick up the same ones each time.
Perfect. Thanks.
Does that answer your question or did you have like a follow-up on that? Because I want to make sure that
Yeah, that answers it well. I'm always I like to cook,
Mhm.
you know. So I always try to, when I'm seasoning my chicken but I like the advice. I never thought about that with paprika. Simply it could have citric acid in it, right? Because you would think paprika, it's paprika. Like
Yeah.
what else could they put there? So
Mhm.
yeah, that's great info. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of it like to give them credit, I guess, is just to preserve the thing longer. It makes their cost less, which makes your cost less, but sometimes like you pay the price in your health. So it's like I will make the trade-off of paying a bit more for the spices to get the ones that are, healthier.
Now I have to go after, and now I understand why my big bag of coriander was so cheap last week from store.
Yeah.
I'll go get
Okay.
my $6.
Yeah. Okay. Let me hop back into the presentation. Thank you so much for the questions. I love these questions. I feel like these kinds of things really add a lot more value to the presentation. So, and like real world examples, and I want to help you guys as much as possible. So, keep these questions coming. These are like, they make it way more fun and interacting. So, okay. All right. So next up, what we're going to do is we are actually going to do this live, and then I'm going to show you a video of how I do it and how quickly it can be done once you've had some practice. So all of you should have a tracking app. You can either use Cronometer, you can use MyFitnessPal. I personally like Cronometer. I'll explain why. But if you're like, Sean, I'm sticking with MyFitnessPal till I die, I'm not going to argue about it. You guys can download that quick. So if you want to download Cronometer, you don't need premium. You can input your custom macros, and then we're going to turn off net carbs to switch this to total carbs. So what do we think? Would you like to guys do this live on the call, or do you want to do this separate? We'll take like a quick vote. I was just unsure how you guys feel about this. Takes a little bit more time to do it together, but we can. I'm here if you guys want to be here. It's up to you. Live? Okay, perfect. Okay. So quickly open up your Cronometer, please. And I'm going to walk you guys through this step by step. So if you guys don't mind, just put a 3 in the chat when you guys are ready, and we'll go from there. Angela's like, I'm ready. 3 right now. Okay, so open up your Cronometer. First thing you're going to do, let me see if I have the steps in place. Yeah, I do. Okay. So if you don't already have Cronometer, feel free to start downloading it. It should only take a second. Or you can use MyFitnessPal. I'm going to just quickly explain why I prefer Cronometer, and then we'll actually move into it. So those who don't have the app ready, do that now. And this next slide will take me a couple minutes. So I used to use MyFitnessPal for tracking. It is definitely the most popular one. It's what I started with. And it's not to say that it's like terrible or useless. It's just there's a few key differences on Cronometer that I find to make it better. So MyFitnessPal, one of the cons is anybody can put foods into the database, which means, it's handy in the sense that you yourself can add a food to the database. However, humans can make mistakes. And if anybody can put food in, that's a lot of mistakes that can be made. Whereas Cronometer, the pro is foods are entered via trusted databases only. So people who actually measure the food, weigh the food, put it into like a machine that breaks that food down and gives the technical breakdown of the macros and the micros and the fiber and the electrolytes. All of that is going to be pre-programmed into Cronometer. Whereas it's not always in MyFitnessPal. To give MyFitnessPal credit, because I have been seeing people report this to me, it is getting better at cleaning up the bad entries, but there is still a lot in there, whereas Cronometer has already kind of been perfected that. So where I think Cronometer is superior there is because it has one entry that you can trust. So to put this into like a relatable scenario, if you were to search up chicken breast in MyFitnessPal, there will often be like 10 entries, and they all have different macros, they all have different calories. So you'll often be like, which one do I choose? Cronometer, you just type in chicken breast, there's one entry, and it's the right one. So that alone for me is worth the switch. So MyFitnessPal, this leaves you not sure what entry to choose. Cronometer, only one entry to choose, and it is correct. Okay. MyFitnessPal, another con is the micronutrients are often not inputted by the user. So if I'm in a rush and I just want to say, okay, this chicken breast has 120 calories, 30 grams of protein, etc., and I don't put in all the micronutrients below that, that's going to impact the vitamins and minerals. So I'm going to be having faulty data to look from. Whereas Cronometer, micros are attached to every single entry. To me, that is huge, and also alone for changing, especially as I create meal plans for people on Cronometer. I want to make sure that the micros are attached, because I factor in you guys having a really good, strong micronutrient balance and electrolyte balance and having adequate fiber. So if I'm going off faulty numbers on MyFitnessPal, then to me, it's not good. So with MyFitnessPal, again, fiber and electrolytes are often missing or inaccurate, whereas Cronometer, they're correct with every entry. And then with MyFitnessPal, again, the incomplete breakdown of micros, fiber, and electrolytes, comprehensive breakdown is on Cronometer. So again, It's not the end of the world, but to me, as somebody who uses tracking all the time, I think it is definitely worth it. All right, so it looks like everybody's ready now. So we're going to go on and do this live step by step. So please open up Cronometer. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we are going to input your custom macros. So this will be different for everyone. Your macros are either listed in your Health and You app at the top or at the top of your, well, and on the top of your meal plan. So you can find them both there. Okay, so what you're going to do first for step 2 is once you have Cronometer open, you're going to click More in the bottom right-hand corner. You're then going to go to Targets, which is the third one down. Then you're going to go to Macro Targets. And then there should be 3 buttons along the top. The one says Ratio, the next says Fixed, and the next one says Keto. We're going to click the middle one, which says Fixed. Okay, and then you're going to type in your macros. So you're going to cover what is either at the top of your Health and You app. So if you need to quickly switch over and check that or check your meal plan, you could do that. I'll give you guys 10 seconds to do that. And then you're going to input your macros into there. Okay, so for myself, this was 180 grams of carb or 180 protein, 300 carb, 100 grams of fat. So you have to figure out what those are for you. I'm going to give you guys about 10 seconds to type that in. And then, once I see a couple 5s in the chat, I will move on. Okay, next, there's a button at the bottom, so keep in the same window that says Show Advanced Settings. You're going to click that. You want to make sure that the units are in grams, not kcal. So type in grams. And then at the bottom, it'll say Track Carbohydrates As. The default is net carbs. So net carbs takes out the fiber. There's dispute on this of whether those fibrous calories count. For me, they do. And I would definitely track total carbs. I think that it makes a difference. And I don't want that taken out just because a food has fiber. So I switched that over to total carbs. All right, so now we're going to backspace out. So quickly before we move on, sorry, keep in that chat. So there should see fixed targets total and then custom energy target. So the custom energy target is what you've put in as your calories. So you might be getting a little warning message being like, hey, this doesn't match. Now we're going to go make it match. So you're going to go back to targets, top left corner, push targets. Then there's going to be energy settings. Then if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the food, at the bottom of the thing, there's going to be custom energy target. You're going to select that one. And then you're going to put in whatever number was on the previous slide. So if you need to go back and check, go macro targets. What is the custom or what is the fixed targets total equal? For me, it's 2820. And then I just go in and I make sure that that matches on the other one. So custom energy 2820, and then that warning message will go away. If your thing says include exercise and that's checked off, you want to not check that because we have already factored that in to your macros. Nurjan says, say that again, please. Okay. Which part, just so I'm clear. Sorry.
Hi, sorry, I don't think going back is going to help 'cause I think I'm a bit far back. It's okay, I'll bug Kylie later on.
It's okay. Okay, I'll quickly summarize.
I got lost at a bit when you said press keto and then do custom program. I didn't know what to do after that.
Okay, so you're gonna click not keto but fixed in the middle.
I did that bit. I entered all my entries.
Okay, cool. And then at the bottom, there'll be one that says custom energy target.
Oh yeah.
Write that number down, or at least
Okay.
memorize it. Because what
Okay.
you want to have is that custom energy target matches the fixed target total. Those numbers need to match. And if it doesn't, there'll be
Okay.
like a little warning bit. Okay, and then under that, there should be something that says show advanced settings, and then you switch the net carbs over to total carbs.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then energy settings, you're going to go in and you're going to put that number that we just wrote down under the custom energy target, and you're also going to exclude exercise. And the reason being is what a lot of people do is they will say, all right, well, I've eaten 2,000 calories and my tracker says that I burned 500 calories. That means I get to eat 500 calories more. No, we've already factored that into the macros that we've given you. assuming that you're exercising, assuming that you're walking and living. So you don't want to do that, because what happens is you get into this dangerous game of, okay, well, I want to eat more, so I'm going to go do 300 calories worth of work. It doesn't work that way. And you'll almost always end up eating more than you burn. And then you're kind of like forever chasing it, and it just doesn't work. It also, in my opinion, kind of gives a bad relationship with food, because it thinks like, okay, I've eaten this, so I have to go work it off. And I don't think that's a good way to think about it. Okay, moving on. Are we all good with that? Can we move on? Is everyone good? Someone just say yes or done or something in the chat, please. Or if you have a follow-up question, just let me know. All right, cool. Next step. Mine still has a warning sign. So what that means, Cami, is that your custom energy target does not match. Are you saying both your numbers, are they matching and you still have a warning sign?
I'm just gonna take myself off mute. It's just like when I put in my targets, yeah, I don't really use Cronometer anymore, so I'm
Okay,
having
so what
trouble.
happens is they need to match. So you're going to go back to the macro targets page.
Okay.
Okay, and you've put, and it says fixed, right? And you're not on that one.
Yeah, it says fixed, and then I put in my protein target. I don't really know my carb and fat because I'm on the different.
Okay, so you're on calories and protein.
Yep.
Okay, so you just have to put in like a low amount of carb and a low amount of fat, and then just get it to say like 1300 or whatever it is that you're on.
Okay. But it doesn't let me type that in anymore. Like,
It
what
should
is
let you type in the
happening?
amount of grams that you're putting in.
Mm, okay, one sec.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, we're getting closer. I think I figured it out.
Okay, cool. How about you, Katrina? Are you good? Did you get it? No, it's okay. Okay, so I'm going to show you on the screen here. You want these two numbers to match.
Okay,
Okay,
so I've unmuted myself. Okay, I put all my numbers in. I have all the correct numbers, and then it says it doesn't match. Target totals don't match. Now, what's the step after that I'm not doing
okay,
right?
so click top left where it says targets. So back out.
Yeah,
And then the third one down says energy settings.
energy settings. Go back to targets, energy settings. Okay, yeah,
And then
wasn't in
scroll
there.
all the way to the bottom.
Yeah,
And then there should be one that says custom energy target. You're going to check that off.
custom energy. Okay, ticket. Right now it's not ticked. So just
Okay, so yeah, tick that.
okay.
And then you're going to type in the same amount of calories that was on the previous page.
Right, where do I type that? Oh,
Next to where it says custom energy target, you click the button or the number that's there, you backspace what's currently there, and then you retype in the new one.
got it. That was the step I missed. Okay,
Okay, cool. Awesome.
that's it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, no problem. So that's kind of the tough bit, honestly. So no worries there. All right. Okay, next page. Now we're going to start by creating your own meal plans from scratch. So we are going to create the rough outline first of like what foods you're picking, and then you can play around with the amounts later to fine tune it. Okay, so if you're trying to fine tune everything every step of the way, it's going to take you longer and then you're going to have more problems. So just put in the foods that you want first, and then you can worry about the amounts. So, don't worry about how the exact amount of chicken you need, the exact amount of potato you need, the exact amount of eggs you need. Like, just put the foods in first, and then you'll play with the amounts to make it fit the macros that you've just outlined. So I recommend starting with 3 to 5 meals a day. I always usually do 4 because you want to, like, 4 is the greatest amount of is the minimum amount of protein dosages that I think that you should have in a day. So we're going to start with the protein sources first. Then we're going to add a carb or a veggie to each meal. Then you're going to add a small amount of healthy fats to your meal. Finally, we'll start tinkering with the amounts to get this more exact. So I want to show you a video of what it should look like with a bit of practice. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that this is all shared here. I'm going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to play this video of me narrating doing this on my own. Okay, so we're going to slideshow. Can someone please let me know if this doesn't have sound? Because it should. I've set it up to have sound.
Okay, so I have set my macros and now I'm going to start. So I'm going to start with breakfast, add food, type in eggs or whatever breakfast, protein you want. Okay, you can play around with the size here. Okay, I usually get large eggs. I'm just going to start with 3. Okay, so at first, just play around with the numbers. You can always adjust things after. With that, I like to have Greek yogurt. So I type in Greek yogurt. I'm going to type the non-fat one. The recommended serving size will always be at the top, 175 grams. So I'm going to increase that a little bit to 250. Add to diary. What do I want then with my Greek yogurt? We're going to go blueberries. I also like to have a little bit of honey with it to bolster up the calories, make it taste a little better. And I also like to add in walnuts. I'm going to add in 10 grams of that. And then I'm also going to add in 2 Brazil nuts. Get my selenium. And that's boom. Okay, so that's the breakfast meal now done. Okay, and like I said, play with the amounts later. I have a rough idea of how much I need, but I will tinker with it at the end to get the macros exact. So then lunch, we're going to type in chicken breast. Again, that's the recommended serving sizes. You can change this to ounces if you want, but for the sake of this, we'll stick with grams. Then I'm going to have this with rice. So basmati rice. And see with Cronometer, it's all just there. You don't need to worry about which one to pick. It's ranks on the side. See this NCCDB on the side? It's rank. So we'll go with that. I'm going to start off with 200 grams of rice. I also like to have this with a bit of avocado. So this could be a half. So it says each here. And for each, and you could do a half. Or you could do a full one. I'm going to do a half, and then we'll play around with the amounts later. Maybe let's add a little bit of olive oil. Just put the sides onto that. And then on the side, for private, I'm going to have a bit of the ice cream. So I'm not playing with the amounts really to start. I'm just getting a rough idea, and I'll play with the amounts after. So next meal, we're going to go ground beef. So if you're going to want to pay attention to how lean it is, I think lean protein is about 80%. Okay, when you get lean ground beef, about 80%. Extra lean would be about 90%. So I'm going to go with 80. Then 140. I usually have this with sweet potato. Again, how are you cooking it? That kind of matters. So we bake ours. Okay, then we go to 40. Then we want to add a little bit of olive oil. I'm also going to have this with broccoli. So we got a little bit of blueberries in here. And on my final meal, so it looks like I need quite a bit of protein. I don't have a ton of fat space left, and I have a lot of room for carbs. So I'll keep that in mind later. But for now, I know that I need about 40 grams of protein. So I'm probably going to have another lean protein. Let's just say it's shrimp. If we want to do that, we could also do chicken breast. I like to do a couple of the same proteins a day, but from a meal prep perspective, it's a lot easier. So let's see how much protein we need here. This is 43 grams. We don't even need that much. We'll put a little bit over there, like it says 181.9 instead of 180. That's fine. I like plus or minus 2 grams per meal. Okay, and we're going to go here. We'll go rice again, just to keep it easy from a meal prep perspective. Okay, and go a little bit of olive oil again. Maybe add some broccoli in there. Okay, so that's my meal plan done. Now, as you can see, I'm a little bit short in a couple areas. So protein, I'm a little bit over, so I could pull that back a little bit. So I'll just start making little micro adjustments here. So 130 down here and 130 down here. Let's see if that did it. I'm still a little bit over. If I wanted to be more precise, I could just do, say, 125 here, 125 here. Now I'm a little bit under, but again, I'm closer. Okay, so then carbs is where I'm short. So where are my main carb sources? So I have raspberries, I have rice, I have sweet potato. I can also add something extra in. In this case, I would probably add something extra in, like a banana, which is going to give me a lot more carbs, and it's just like easy to eat. Okay, so banana, easy to eat. Boom. That's giving me a good chunk there. Maybe with my breakfast, also another way to get calories in pretty easily from a carb perspective is orange juice. So type of orange juice, you get the fresh. Again, I typically measure it in ounces because it is so sensitive on the scale. So I'll just do like 4. Okay, I'm getting closer. Now maybe let's bump this up just so I could get the calories in a little bit easy. Okay, we're getting there. Now I'm going to bump this up to 220. See, as we're slowly getting there, right? Perfect. Okay, now I'm a little bit short on fats. Maybe I could pull this up to 8. Pull this up to 8. And now we're bang on. Okay, so how long did that take? A few minutes. And obviously I've had a lot of practice, but you should be able to get like this pretty quickly. Okay, and then another thing you want to do, instead of having to type all that out every day, what you can do is click the 3 dots on the top right-hand corner, but copy current day, you move across, and then you just go paste. Bam. Okay, and then we can check the micros. So if you swipe across, you can see the micros. You can see fiber, pretty good. Got about 35 grams, a little bit short of calcium. But if you click this, it'll give you an idea of where you're getting these micronutrients from. And if you can see here, um, most of my micros are being hit pretty consistently. So yeah, this is how you do it. It should only take you a few minutes, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite easy. But I like to make sure that all my meals are roughly structured the right way first, and then I start playing around with the numbers at a time. And then I will meal prep probably meals 2, 3, and 4, and then I'll just make my breakfast fresh each day. I like to prep these into individual containers so that they're just easy and you can grab it and go. But if you're not planning this stuff out ahead of time, the chances of you getting this level of precision is pretty much impossible. So you have to plan this stuff before you eat. So always track before you eat the foods. All right, hope this helps.
Okay, cool. So that video, like with me explaining it, is just a little over 6 minutes. So you can get to learning to do this like really quickly and be really efficient with it pretty quickly. So like I said, to recap, set your macros first, which you've all just done. Next step is put your proteins in, then your carb sources, then your fats, then start worrying about the amounts after. If you try to do it ahead of time with the amounts, you're going to get really stressed out and it's going to be like a really complex puzzle that's hard to figure out. So put in all the foods first, then you can start worrying about adding stuff in or taking stuff out or adjusting the amounts. I like as like a general rule to be plus or minus 2 grams. So if your protein is 150, no higher than 152, no lower than 148. And if all your other macros are in line, then you know that you're going to be accurate. But like I was saying as well, as pre-logging, like logging all the foods ahead of time is super beneficial because you'll be able to know that what you're doing is accurate. If you try doing it like you enter meal by meal, what will often happen is you'll get to the end of your day and you're like, oh shoot, I have 80 grams of protein left. I only have like 5 carbs left and I have no fats left. And just to get 80 grams of protein in one sitting is very difficult. So you want to play around with it of like what's actually realistic and meal preppable in your life. Meal preppable, that's a new word, but anyways. Okay, I'm gonna keep going here. We're gonna go screen.
Okay, so I have
Okay, macro tracking. Oh, sorry. Best practices. Okay, so like I was saying, start with 3 to 5 meals. Start with your protein sources, then fill in the rest. Also, again, log your meals before you eat them. I call this pre-logging. So log in all your meals ahead of time, not as you're going on or trying to do it off memory at the end of the day, because you're not going to be able to do that most likely. When at home, always use a food scale. This is a big one. I think that this is one of the biggest things that most people overlook. And I've been guilty of this myself many times. And I just found through trying both ways, it makes a big difference. So pre-portion things into individual meal containers. So what oftentimes people do is they'll have one big container for all their chicken, another big container for all their beef, another big container for all their rice, all their potatoes. So maybe all of their meals are in 4 bigger containers, which means you then need to take that food out of that container and weigh it each time. That means instead of having 1 or 2 sessions of weighing all your food, you have to weigh things 4 times a day, every day across a week. There's just way more opportunities for you to get lazy or like get busy or things go wrong. So I like to weigh it all as you do the meal prep. So like let's just say instead of 4 big containers, have like 12 small containers. I like glass containers, and then you just weigh it out in those meals. So like say you're prepping 3 meals a day, instead of having 4 big containers, you'd have 3 meals per day. Maybe you're doing a meal prep for 3 days, that'd be 9 containers. If you're doing 4 days, that would be 12. And then you just put your rice portion in, you put your chicken portion in, you put your veggie portion in. And then that way it's so much easier for you to just go into your fridge, grab the food and go. That is a sensible idea. Thank you. I've tried both ways, and I just find my consistency of like being accurate and actually being able to stick to that is much higher by doing it that way. Sorry. Okay. Log everything. So this includes like snacks, bites, drinks, even the ones you rather not admit. So the much easier way to do this is not to have the snacks. So a lot of the parents here, what they do, like, well, I find myself eating my kids' meals. If your calories are low and they're like 1500, 1800, and you're just like eating, what your kids leave behind, you could be exceeding your calories by like 30 to 60%, very easily. So just make sure you're tracking stuff. Track weekend eating. Unfortunately, the calories do still count on the weekends. So be mindful of dining out or travel. Estimate portions if needed. And when estimating, I always recommend assume that the calories are more than what you're consuming. It's better to be a little bit under than over. When learning, you can send screenshots of Cronometer to review with your coach. Ashley, who's on this call, actually told me that you can connect your account with me and I can view your stuff that way. So that's way more handy than having to send screenshots. So that's another way you'd have to do. I have to figure that out, the logistics of that, but I assume it's rather easy. You probably just connect as like a friend on Cronometer, and then I can view your thing. So once you fill in your meal plan, you can do this with myself, Kylie, or Jen, whoever your coach is at the time. Fill your stuff in Cronometer, add us as a friend. We can go in there, review that you've done stuff correctly. Next thing is copy and paste your days for several days. That is a huge time saver. Also, what you can do is save meals. So you would go into the collection of meals that you had. So I'm going to go back here for a sec. I'm going to mute this.
Okay,
so what you can do is in these meals. So see this breakfast meal that I have here? Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm just going to try. Oh my goodness. It's not working. So you can take these meals and save them as like either under your favorites or custom or meals. So I'd be able to save this collection of eggs, Greek yogurt, berries as an entire meal. So I don't have to freshly input it each time. Okay, so you would just like right click here or select the meals by clicking the three dots in the corner. You highlight the ones that you want to do and you create it and put it into its own meal. I like to use the same meals 2 to 3 days in a row or more. It just is so much easier to meal prep from a grocery stand perspective, as well as like sticking to your meals. If you're trying to make something different every single day, it's going to be very difficult for you to stick with that. I also like to have set meal prep days. So for us in our house, that is Sunday and Wednesday. So on Sunday, we prep for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we prep for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So just having that cadence makes it really easy to stick to. And it also sets you up for what I call fridge audits. So keep an eye on like what's running low, what groceries you need to buy. If things are going to, smell bad, you don't want to notice that on your way to work when you're like, oh shit, like this has gone off or I don't have enough of this. So keeping an eye and being aware of that and being prepared ahead of time will make sure that you have less slip ups, because the most frequent slip ups I think has happened to all of us is like your meal prep went bad or you ran out of food and you're like, oh shit, I got to go grab something quick and convenient. And that's usually when, we don't always make the best decisions. We make a trip to McDonald's or get a shawarma or a pizza or whatever, because we just simply weren't prepared. Okay, next one. So keep your own meals within the app for frequent meals that you have. I just mentioned that before. Keep an eye on your macros. So click on each micro to see best sources. So when you're in that video of Cronometer, what you can do is you can swipe across to your micros, and then you can click on, like say you click on vitamin A, it'll let you know what your best sources of vitamin A are. We're also going to do that micro training as well, because we had some good interest on this call. So if you guys want to do that, I'll definitely do that for you. I'll find like what each micronutrient does, and then also the best ways to find them. You can alternatively just look it up quickly on Google or ChatGPT, but we'll also do like a really high level training on that and really like fully explain like the logistics of how that works in your life. Next up is look to get enough fiber. This is probably one that people overlook the most. And these are the type of people who are like, oh, like I'm constipated, or my stomach doesn't feel good. Make sure you're getting enough fiber. So great sources of fiber, just quickly off the top of my head, is like berries, fruit, vegetables. Those things are going to be having fiber. You want to get between 20 and 38 grams daily to have good bowel movements, just generally feel good. Don't counteract the activity or exercise. I was mentioning that before. Your macros are already factored in. Next is log a few days at a time. Like what I recommend doing is pre-logging maybe 3 or 4 days in a row, the same foods, where you just do that copy and paste method. And then you can seek feedback by either sharing an account with us or screenshots. Next up is use weights, not measurements. So grams and ounces are going to be far more reliable than cups and tablespoons or things like that. Reason be like glasses or pints, because a glass could be 3 ounces, a glass could be 8 ounces. That's a huge difference in calories. A tablespoon of peanut butter, you could really jam pack 2 tablespoons inside of a tablespoon, or it could be half full. Those are going to be a huge discrepancy of calories. So weighing the stuff will be much better. Be aware of cooked measurements versus raw. Biggest example here I would say is rice. If you used 100 grams of dry rice, that's going to be way more. It's like 3 times more than cooked rice. So be aware of that. The barcode. So a lot of people are like, oh, I just scanned the barcode. The barcode is based on raw, not cooked. And also labels can lie and be inaccurate. I think they're allowed legally to be off by up to 60%. So be aware of that. I like to just use the database that's within Trainerize, within Cronometer, because it'll actually be accurate to cooked weights. Look up the full name of the food. Blueberries, chicken breast, not just like chicken or berries. Look up the full amount or the full name of the food. Check for oils and sauces. We were mentioning that before. Include cooking oils, dressings, condiments, because those can add up quickly. Like if you're not counting the coconut oil or the butter that you're using, that's going to really jack up your fats, which jacks up your calories. Track your salt. So this one can seem a bit tedious. I like getting like a little bit of a one of those little quarter teaspoons of salt and just adding that into the tracker. Reason being, most people have improper electrolyte balance, which leads to like headaches, going to the bathroom a lot, waking up in the middle of the night to go pee. This is almost always because your sodium is too high and your potassium is too low. So make sure that you get that. And I'll go over that in deep detail on the micros training. Stay honest, stay consistent, adjust when necessary. Like if you've been consistent with 2 weeks for 2 weeks and you haven't gotten leaner, you haven't seen improvements, then I would make a small adjustment and reduce your calories slightly. Bonus tips for creative meal ideas: use ChatGPT or eat this much. Get a long, tall food scale. Reason being is most food scales online on Amazon are circular and small. If you're trying to put that onto a plate or a glass container or a plastic container, something like that, the container is actually going to block out the number on the scale, and you're going to have to like turn your head to the side to really get that. So I like a long, tall food scale. When eating out is unavoidable, eat less on those days. When eating out, stick to a protein and veggies. Avoid the apps, drinks, desserts, because those are really what jack up the calories. Aim for a 2-to-1 ratio from, this is backwards. This is supposed to be potassium to sodium. My bad. I'll adjust that. And then to find the best microfiber electrolyte sources, use Google, ChatGPT. We're also going to do a training on that as well. Reflect on the days where you felt your best and eat like that more often. And I'm also going to bring up another training that we're doing. So this is like a little bit of a preview, but I think it is relevant. So let me just pull this up. This is going to be our next training. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a preview on it. But the nutritional portion, I think, is really important just because there is a macro section on that. So let me know when you guys can see the second screen that I've just brought up here. It should say nutrition food selection at the top. Can we see this? Yes? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so here are the different macros. I just want to give you a quick example. So 3 to 4 protein sources a day. So lean protein sources. So these are some of the best protein sources to get: chicken breast, shrimp, tuna, cod, tilapia, bassa, 0% Greek yogurt, protein powders. I'm moving away from protein powders recently. I always like to get it from real food. These meat options are going to be your best ones. Fatty proteins can include eggs, steak, ground beef, ground chicken, ground turkey, lamb, salmon, higher fat Greek yogurt like whole fat or 5% Greek yogurt, chicken thighs, chicken legs, things like that. All right, next up is some carbs. So you want to have some complex carbs as well as simple carbs, which are veggies. So rice, potato, sweet potato, quinoa, oatmeal, cream of rice, sourdough bread. Veggies can include broccoli, green beans, Brussels sprouts, carrots, spinach, squash, turnip. So the carbs are actually where you get a lot of your electrolytes and vitamins and minerals. So again, when people are skipping out on carbs, you're missing out on a lot of vital vitamins and nutrients. And then fruit sources. So blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries. I think the berry group is like the superhuman, the superfood. This is where most of your fruit should come from because it's lower glycemic, which means it doesn't spike your blood sugar, but it also gives you a ton of fiber. Raspberries is the fiber king or the fiber queen, however you want to look at it. Strawberries, blackberries, apples, oranges, grapes, bananas, pears, melon fruit, pineapples, grapefruits, cherries, mangoes. And then fats. Healthy fats can include the fats that you get from egg yolks, grass-fed butter, fatty meats and fish like we had in the previous list, the protein list, avocados, coconut oils, walnuts, cashews, Brazil nuts, extra virgin olive oil, cheese, dark chocolate, chia seeds, nut butter, natural yogurt. And I think that was everything. Okay, so there's an example of a couple meal plans. So you can screenshot if you like. But again, we're going to be going over this in the next training. I just want to kind of give you the macro breakdown and some examples of each because this is a macro training. Okay. Let's go here. I got everything. All right, questions. What questions do you have? Maybe like let me know like what are some real world examples of things that you potentially struggle with, and we can go from there. So feel free to chat your question. Coffee, matcha, tea, where do they go? Okay, so I have like two different answers for this. So you can track that if you have high sugar or high calorie coffees, I would definitely recommend tracking that. For instance, if you go to Starbucks every day and you get a sweet vanilla bean mocha latte, whatever, you have to know what is in that. Okay, so let's just say you look the calories up online, it says 600 calories. First of all, personally, I would change your coffee selection because that is a huge amount of calories to just be coming from coffee. It's going to cut in so much to your day. So if we've factored in for you 1,800 calories and you're having an additional 600 through coffee, which is truthfully like mostly sugar, you're not going to feel the best from that. You're going to want to probably change your coffee selection to something more natural, which is like coffee, honey, milk. That's what I do. So that's part one. Part two is if you have coffee black, it's only 5 calories. That's so insignificant that I don't even track that. The next thing is if you do things the same every day in terms of your coffee, personally, I don't put my coffee into my tracker because I know every day, most days, I have 2 coffees and I make them the exact same every day. I do a splash of milk, I do a drizzle of honey. Total, my thing is maybe 100 calories, maybe, probably less. I don't track it because it's just so consistent. It's part of my everyday, but you could track it, and I think you should track it maybe the first time to figure out roughly how much that is. But just be aware, like you don't want to be doing like a ton of sugar and a ton of milk, because your coffee that is just like black coffee on its own, a cup of it is 5 calories. But if you're racking that up, and having maybe 2 specialty coffees from Starbucks a day, you've just taken in like almost a day's worth of calories, depending which option you pick and what size you get. So just be very careful with that kind of stuff. Cami said the reason I stopped using Cronometer is because I was having trouble finding some foods, mostly just fruits. Am I searching something wrong? I think you might be searching something wrong. I find if I type in whatever it is, it'll be there. Do you have an example? Maybe we could look it up live on the call and I could look for you. I haven't yet run into that issue personally. I think sometimes what happens is maybe you don't type in the entire food, or you don't like if you were to type in blueberry versus blueberries. Now, see, it seems to work for me. I'm not sure.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was like an apple or something, and it just kept giving me like applesauce or apple this, like apple flavored something. And I was like, wait, I don't want that.
So when I type in apple, the one that comes up at the top says apple, comma, fresh with skin. So that would be the one you would want to pick.
No, that definitely didn't come up for me before.
Okay, I would try again. Maybe you made a typo, or maybe like you didn't have great internet connection. Maybe something
No.
was going wrong that day, but it seems to work. I've been using this for like, I don't know, 6 months now. I haven't had that happen yet. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but maybe try backspacing and then just typing again. There's also the little toggle on the side. Maybe this is where it went wrong, is I'm in the search feature right now, and if you look here, there's a little orange part that says most recent. So that means it's like
Yeah.
it's sorted by most recent. Perhaps you had that clicked to either best match or A to Z or Z to A. I like to have it set to best match.
Okay.
All right,
I'll try again.
Okay, sounds good, Kimmy. Thank you. All right, Nurjahan, what's up? You have a question?
I do. Sorry, I don't have my headscarf on, but I've got my hoodie on in the meantime.
Okay.
That's why I could have come on the video earlier. Quick, I might have missed it. You might have said it. So I buy halal meat from the halal butchers. So they don't come in packets like you get from supermarkets. So I'm just weighing them by grams. I'm not looking at the back to read anything else because I don't have that sort of packaging. Is that okay?
That's totally fine, and that's what you should do. In Canada, for instance, a lot of foods don't have a barcode or nutritional facts on them. There's certain foods that don't. Fruits, for example, don't, and meats don't. So that's totally fine. That's exactly how you should do it. That's totally fine. Most things that are like whole foods, single ingredients are actually not going to have nutritional facts on the back. It's more so like when you're buying things, like for instance, like I know you live in England. So like if you went to Tesco and you got like a pre-prepared chicken that was flavored, that might come in like a plastic packaging. Because they've added a bunch of stuff to it, they have to have nutritional facts on the back. So on the back, it'll have the calories, the macros, as well as the ingredients, which would be first ingredient will be like chicken breast, and then there'll be like whatever spice, and then it'll also have probably like 10 to 15 like preservatives, different ingredients. You want to avoid that. So where you're going to the butcher's is a much better option because it's just going to be chicken thigh or chicken breast or steak or whatever it may be. So that's definitely correct and the right way to do it.
And the same will apply to, look, I don't do bland food. If I can't do just salt and pepper, that's not our food. It's not what I grew up on. And when you said there's all this other extra stuff in paprika,
Mm,
and paprika is dried peppers, and that's how we make it back home.
mm.
Um, I think I need to go back. It just triggered me. I need to go back and look at the back of the packet because all of my spices, I use those spices to help me grill my meat.
Yeah,
So what you're saying, those,
definitely take a look. What's fortunate for the UK is you guys have very strong laws when it comes to food protections. For instance, like Canada's a little bit weaker and US is even weaker than that. So we have a big US contingent where they're allowed to put in a lot of stuff to preserve foods that are not necessarily healthy for you. But the good news is like now you know, now you can be aware, and now you can just like search it out and actively look. So if you're ever unsure, send us a picture, ask us, and we can be like, hey, this is bad, this is why you want to avoid that. Because what I find and like why this is so important, and I've really been experiencing this, is gut health problems are like on the rise. If you talk to 10 of your friends, probably like six or seven of them have some gut health problem, right? So this for me, in my opinion, is not from any particular food group. It is from what is put in that food. So the foods that are often demonized are bread, gluten, dairy, things like that. If you got the raw, pure form of that thing, chances are you're going to be fine. So for instance, like I like when I first was getting into fitness, one of my first mentors was very much like never eat dairy, never eat bread. Gluten is like the devil, sugar is the devil. These things I think are now proving to be false. And what people are using as a frame of reference for that is maybe like Dempster's bread, which for us is just like your like Warburton bread. Okay, it's like a very common bread. You flip that over, it's not just normal ingredients that would be in bread like rye, barley, wheat. It's this acid, this sorbic, this words you can't even pronounce. Those are the things giving people problems, not bread, which we've eaten for thousands of years. Same thing with milk. Now most people are like, oh, I'm lactose intolerant because they had pizza. It's not the milk or the cheese that's giving you problems. It's the other ingredients within those foods that are being labeled as dairy, for instance, which is why 99% of you say you'll have Greek yogurt in your plans because it's a form of dairy, but it's a very clean form of dairy that is very true to the natural form of it. So most people, when they come on who say, I'm lactose intolerant, I'm like, here, just try this. Just try a little amount of it. And not most times people are fine. So I think it's like, just be aware of the ingredients that you're in your food. Pay attention to that stuff, ask questions, and we'll be able to help you out.
Two more quick questions, sorry.
Keep
Also,
them
we use a
coming.
lot of dried herbs in our tea, for example. Does that add calories?
Sorry, you cut
I
out a
don't even
little
know what
bit.
it is.
You added out. You cut
So
out a
like when
bit.
I'm, no, but can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, okay. So when we have our tea, we boil it for half and have all these dried spices. Does that add to the calories then? Like I think you call it cardamom and bay leaves, for example, in English.
Yeah.
If I add those, that add to the calories.
Um, there might be very few calories in there, but nothing significant. That's totally fine.
Okay.
Herbs, spices, going to be so low ranking that it's like not worth it's not worth tracking in my opinion. Good question. What was
And
your other question?
my final question is, I wasn't, I've been doing this for a couple of weeks, but I haven't been weighing my oil when I cook or spray the oil my food, but you're saying today that we should be tracking those and be part of our overall calories count,
Yes,
right?
so it's a bit of like a nuance caveat to that. First of all, I wouldn't use a spray for the same reasons I was saying before. There's stuff in the spray to make it be able to
No, no,
spray.
no, no. I don't buy a spray. I have a spray bottle. I pour the oil in
Ah,
so I can.
perfect.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
perfect. That's great. So,
Yeah, for me,
one, if you use the same amount each time, then you at least you know. Okay, so if it's like and that's what you use every time, then that's like a uniform, consistent amount. I wouldn't like don't need to worry about getting your scale out. Second thing is what you put in the pan is not likely going to 100% be consumed by you. A lot of it gets left behind. So it's not like a huge deal, but I would just say try to use the same standard amount each time and pay attention to how different foods make you feel. For instance, I don't personally think we should cook with olive oil. Olive oil to me is more of a topper, but when you heat up olive oil to a certain degree, it becomes what's called destabilized. So it just messes with how your body metabolizes it and produces it or breaks it down. Sorry. So what you want to use instead is what's called a saturated fat. So beef tallow, coconut oil, ghee, those are like the three prominent three. Grass-fed butter. Grass-fed butter, I feel like doesn't cook that well. It tends to burn. I really like using ghee and coconut oil personally. Avocado oil is another good one. Those honestly just come down mostly to taste and like what you prefer. But any saturated fat that can cook at a high smoke point is fine.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great questions. Thank you for that. What other
Sean, I
questions
had a
are?
question,
Yeah, absolutely. What's up,
if you don't
Finn?
mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just wondering when you're choosing on the Cronometer, when you're choosing like apples, somebody mentioned with your fruits and stuff, or take sourdough bread, for instance. There's so many brand options. So
Yes.
how do you have to pick a specific brand? And if it's not there, what do you go with? Because I'm looking even at the bread. There's one that's just sourdough bread.
Mm.
But then if I look up, the specific brand I use, because it's not the same breakdown, it's not even there. So what's the best option there?
So things that are scannable, I would scan them in that case if you can't find it. The next thing is with sourdough bread specifically, I recommend going to a bakery, in which case you can just get your sourdough from a bakery, type in sourdough bread, use whatever entry it gets you, and as long as you consistently get the same bread and you're using it to accommodate for the same amount of calories, it's going to be consistent or at least reliable in the sense that like if you're using two slices of that particular bread and you're tracking it as two slices of bread, two slices of that bread will always remain roughly the same amount of calories. Obviously the bread can be a little
Right.
bit bigger, a little bit smaller, but it's going to be roughly the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Same with fruits then. Like again, if you're choosing an apple that's, let's say, a Fuji apple, and the next week you have Honeycrisp apples, like,
Yeah, the calories are
is
going to
there a
be
big
like
difference?
roughly similar, and then the apple size and the apple density. Like for instance, like um tracking is not a 100% precise art, so to speak. Like if I gave you two gala apples and they're both weigh 100 grams, they're technically not both going to be the exact calories because some is like a little bit denser, maybe the other one's a little bit softer, maybe one's a little bit newer. Like it's not an exact science. It's
Okay.
close. So as long as you're the two words I like to say is consistent and reliable, meaning reliable is like if I do the same thing over and over and over again, it's going to give me a predicted result. And consistent is like you're doing it similarly or the least same amounts consistently over time. You're going to be able to influence the amounts of which you eat and then get the predicted result on the outside, whether it be gain weight, lose weight, stay same weight, whatever.
Okay. All right.
Does that
Thanks,
make
Sean.
sense? Does that
Yeah,
satisfy your answer?
it's good. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Cool. What other questions are coming up for you ladies here? Any more questions? We feeling good? Feel free to hop in. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Honestly, seriously appreciate you guys coming on a Saturday, spending time with us. We're actually doing we're going to be doing a micro training as well. So you guys seem to be interested in that kind of stuff, and I love talking about that stuff. So I'll create that, and I'll let you guys know when the date's going to be. I'll put it to a vote, like what time you guys want to do. We have people from various time zones now, so it's kind of a bit difficult to coordinate sometimes, but we will do our best. And if not, you guys can always watch the replay. Feel free to ask questions. Once this is done uploading today, I'm going to upload it to YouTube on our private YouTube channel where only our clients can see it. And then you guys can always watch the replay. Feel free to add comments in there as well and ask questions either on the YouTube channel or to us directly, and we'll be happy to answer those for you.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you later. Talk soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.